Who knew the primary job for anchors at CNBC is defending billionaires at every turn? My name is Brittany Page, and this is the Page Perspective. Do the wealthiest Americans flee America's best cities because of high taxes? That is just one of the claims that we're tackling today, and we actually have data on this. This is an actual research area. The CNBC anchors might want to take note next time they attempt to debate Senator Elizabeth Warren, and we are going to get to her wonderful dunk on them. But first, there's an ongoing divide in the Democratic Party, and we see it playing out now with various Democratic Party leaders refusing to endorse Zohran Mamdani, who is wildly popular, wildly successful, dominated the Democratic primary, is still dominating his New York City mayoral race. Some, like Pete Buttigieg, have cynically attributed his success to his slick marketing and presence on social media rather than his focus on issues of affordability and what it takes to survive in America today. And the Democratic establishment should take note of this recent poll from Data for Progress, where they asked those who supported Mamdani in the 2025 Democratic primary in New York City why they supported him. The top issues: his plan to lower costs, his plans to tax the wealthy and stand up to corporations, and his support for Palestinian rights. His social media presence, that is on the list there, but certainly not at the top. Now, CNBC is also struggling with understanding Mamdani's popularity. It seems primarily because they are chiefly concerned with the well-being of the nation's wealthiest. And I watched an interview that they did with Andrew Cuomo, who can't take no for an answer in this election and allegedly in other ways, as he is now running as an independent against Mamdani after losing the primary. I watched him on this interview with CNBC, and it was basically endless propping up of his campaign, combined with the anchors displaying fear and panic about Mamdani, much like they do in this interview with Elizabeth Warren. Now, we are going to get to the clip first, and then I'm going to get into what the data says about whether wealthy Americans flee cities because of taxes. So if you stick around for that, be sure to let me know in the comments, because I want to hear what you think. Here is Squawk on the Street co-anchor David Faber going to bat for the billionaires, or at least trying, while Elizabeth Warren sets him straight.
And so this idea of somehow raising taxes on the wealthiest New Yorkers, who, by the way, I would point out, pay roughly 15% of their income right now between city and state, raising taxes on them will simply drive them away. Shouldn't the focus of a mayor be on delivering services to the constituents of the city, and doing that by raising the most revenue as possible without chasing businesses and the high-income taxpayers out of the city, because they can go to Austin, they can go to Dallas, they can go to Atlanta, they can go to Nashville. This is your issue. It's a national issue, not a local issue.
The issue is affordability. Do you know how many working families are chased out of New York City every day because they can't afford housing, they can't afford groceries, they can't afford child care?
Okay, I'm going to pause here because this is an important point. Senator Warren asks if they know how many working people are driven out of New York City because of the affordability issue. I assume they don't. So they should take a look at this report from the Fiscal Policy Institute. Who is leaving New York State? And the overall takeaway here is that when compared to wealthy New Yorkers, working class New Yorkers leave at a significantly higher rate. Look at this here. Quote, "There is no statistically significant evidence of tax migration out of New York. The top 1% of New Yorkers, those earning over $815,000, move out of New York State at 1/4 the rate of the rest of the population during typical non-COVID years." And you can see on the graph, broken down by income, which income ranges show the highest rates of migration out of New York. It is working class New Yorkers. And since we're here, we might as well look at where these high earning New Yorkers end up if they do move. And are you shocked to learn that they actually move to other similarly high tax states? Connecticut, New Jersey, California, the wealthiest New Yorkers are more likely than working class New Yorkers to move to other high tax states when they leave New York. But something tells me all of this does not matter much to the CNBC anchors. And I don't want to get too far ahead of Elizabeth Warren here because the debate heats up.
What Zohran is saying is, I want people to be able to afford to live in New York City. That's what keeps it a vibrant city. That's what makes people want to live
Nobody
here.
disagrees with that, Senator, but raising taxes in order to do it? Why is that the answer?
Oh, dear. Are you worried that billionaires are going to go hungry?
No, I'm worried that they're going to leave and spend their money elsewhere.
You know, they've threatened to do that over and over and over.
And they have. They've left.
But here's the thing.
And Goldman Sachs, when they create new jobs, they do it in Dallas. And Blackstone won't build a new headquarters. And go on and on.
You want to have a workable city? You want to have a city that's vibrant? You want to have a city where the streets are full, where there are things for sale 24 hours a day? Then you need people who can live here and work here.
Well, we've got that right now, by the way. I would point out New York is thriving. So now it's doing pretty well, actually.
I'm glad you think they're doing well, because a lot of people are struggling to pay for housing. A lot of people are struggling to pay for groceries. And I got to tell you, mamas and daddies who are facing $25,000 a year to pay for childcare.
Those are national issues. I mean, I know they are the local state, but you can't.
New York City.
Yes, but if you deal with them in that way, by what is always your backup, just tax them more, they will leave.
No, the backup is make this city and make this country work for everyone. I get that the Republican point of view is make this country and make every city in this country work better and better for a handful of billionaires and let everybody else eat dirt. But what Mamdani won on in a Democratic primary is he said, I'm going to address affordability. And he didn't win by one vote.
No, he won by a lot. It's very much unclear he has the ability to actually.
Okay, I had to leave her full statement in there because I love hearing politicians talk like this. We need so much more of this, so much more. So he's worried that the billionaires are going to leave and spend their money elsewhere. We've already talked a bit about this at this point, but I want to revisit the Fiscal Policy Institute report on this because they actually note that New York's 2021 tax increases allowed for a natural experiment. Quote, the most reliable way to analyze the impact of tax rates on migration patterns is to measure behavior changes in response to changes in tax rates, as this approximates a natural experiment. The past 6 years have seen 2 increases in the effective tax rates paid by high earners. The 2017 limitation of the federal deduction for state and local taxes, the SALT cap, and the 2021 increase in New York State's income tax rates on the $1 million, $5 million, and $25 million income brackets. Each of these tax changes imposed an increase in the effective tax rate on high earners of multiple percentage points. In a statistical analysis of migration patterns before, during, and after these tax increases, the FPI finds that they did not consistently or significantly increase high-income New Yorkers' out-migration rates. And note, as discussed in another section of this report, that the high-earning population grew during these periods as well. And they do note that in this report, that New York lost 2,400 millionaire households between 2020 and 2022, but gained 17,500 in the same time frame. So I don't know how many different ways we need to frame the main point here. It is wealthy people are not being driven out of New York. It is working class people who are worried about affordability, the exact issue that is at the top of Mamdani's list. But you might be listening to this and you might be thinking, okay, that's just one report. You are only focused on New York. Is there other evidence? And I'm so glad that you asked. Let's look at Washington State and Massachusetts. We have this report from the Institute for Policy Studies. Quote, new data produced and analyzed by the Institute for Policy Studies and the State Revenue Alliance show that Massachusetts and Washington State have seen tremendous growth in the number of people with more than $1 million in total wealth since raising taxes on higher earners. The revenue generated from these tax payments exceeded expectations and is helping fund essential programs that expand economic opportunity for all. Wait. The millionaire class actually grew post-tax increase? Paging CNBC, guys. If you don't know about the Massachusetts millionaire tax passed by voters in 2022, this is a helpful explainer. Quote, the new tax, set to take effect January 1st, will apply to any portion of taxable income above $1 million. For example, a taxpayer earning $2 million will pay the state's current 5% tax rate on the first $1 million. The second $1 million will be taxed under a higher rate, 9%. That adds up to an extra $40,000 in state income taxes. The tax also applies to one-time millionaires, including people who make more than $1 million in taxable income from selling their homes or businesses. According to an analysis by the Center for State Policy Analysis at Tufts University, an estimated 0.6% of tax filers would see their tax bill increase as a result of this measure. So this progressive taxation was passed by voters who dismissed the propaganda during the election about how wealthy people would flee Massachusetts in response to those taxes. And good thing they did. We're going to get to that in a moment, but I want to talk about Washington State. So in Washington State, the legislature passed a wealth tax for capital gains profits also in 2022. Quote, the new tax applies to capital gains profit from the sale of stocks, bonds, and other non-retirement assets exceeding $250,000 a year. The first returns for the new tax will be due in April 2023. Only 0.2% of Washington taxpayers see enough profits to pay this tax. So, like the example, the approximating a natural experiment in New York, we are able to gain insight into how these tax increases actually drive behavior by looking into the impact these tax increases have had. And in Massachusetts and Washington State, the wealthy are doing just fine. Quote, 2 years into Massachusetts' millionaire tax and a higher tax rate on $250,000 in capital gains in Washington State shows that the millionaire class grew by 38.6% in Massachusetts and 46.9% in Washington, respectively. Their wealth grew by more than $580 billion in current dollars in Massachusetts and $748 billion in Washington State between 2022 and 2024. Our wealth data reveals that the number of millionaires by net worth in Massachusetts rose by 38.6% between 2022 and 2024, from 441,610 individuals to 612,109. In current dollars, their collective wealth increased from $1.6 trillion to $2.2 trillion, or 37.3%. Millionaires in Washington State are doing equally well. CNBC will be happy to know. There were more than 463,000 millionaires in the Evergreen State the year a capital gains tax was introduced. 2 years later, there were more than 681,000 millionaires with a wealth increase of more than $748 billion, or 45.2%. The introduction of a 7% tax on capital gains above $250,000 did not hamper the millionaire class's rate of accumulation, but it did succeed in raising more than $1.2 billion. This revenue has expanded public investment into education, and at the time of writing, lawmakers in Washington State are considering a 9.9% tax on capital gains over $1 million. Guys, come on. What are we doing here? These CNBC anchors are acting like billionaires will be homeless and hungry if we institute wealth taxes, and instead, the wealth tax does not hamper their wealth accumulation and instead allows states to generate revenue that can be used to improve people's lives. And as we know, as we talk about often on this channel, the healthiest societies are those with the most resources. When people have access to the things that they need to live healthy and thriving lives. You get a reduction in crime. You get a reduction in all the societal ills that CNBC anchors love to whine about with Andrew Cuomo. States can use this revenue to invest in education and healthcare and childcare. And let's just read this conclusion as a nice little summary for all of this. Quote, "The positive impact of progressive and wealth taxation cannot be overstated. If well designed and targeted to those at the very top of the income and wealth distribution, it has the potential to not only improve economic and racial equity in the tax code, but also to raise significant revenue that can help balance budgets, spur productive public investment, grow existing social programs, and create new economic initiatives that empower the working class." I think this gets at a fundamental flaw in our thinking here. When we talk about wealth taxes, many people will rush to defend billionaires, even though they themselves will never have the net worth that puts them at risk of paying these taxes. People think when we say wealth tax, we mean them, someone who maybe lives comfortably and considers themselves wealthy, but even this report says to target the ultra high net worth individuals with these taxes. And they define that as someone with more than $30 million in wealth. That is not you. And if you're watching this and you're like, nice try, Brittany, but I am actually a person with a net worth of more than $30 million, then there's a button right below this video that says join, and it's where you can become a channel member. So don't be shy. I make a lot of videos about how important it is to tax you, and you definitely need to keep tabs on me, okay? So with the weight of all this evidence, with the weight of what the research finds here, I think it's important that we adjust our assumptions about these wealth taxes. If we see, or if we have negative assumptions, send this to someone who you've seen defending billionaires. And I know that you can think of someone, I know you're thinking of someone right now, so that we can try to get everyone on the same page here. The wealthiest Americans, they love America's best cities for the same reasons that the rest of us do. They have the best activities, the best sites, the best food. In fact, they have an even better experience in these cities because they have the cash to live there. Every time I'm in New York City, I have a list of restaurants that I want to go to, a list of bakeries, and I always feel so lucky even walking in those streets. And that's how the wealthiest Americans feel there too. That's why they stay there. Some are honest enough to admit this, while some pretend like the taxes will take them elsewhere. And where would that elsewhere be? Another high tax state, most likely, in another city where they can enjoy the amenities that they value. So enough. If you want cities to be thriving places filled with the amenities that you enjoy, then you will pay for them, and you will ensure the human beings who keep those businesses running in that thriving city are well compensated and can afford to live in the same city where they work. This is not complicated. Please, someone send the memo to CNBC. What do you think? Call and leave me a fewer than 3-minute voicemail, 202-656-1509, or send an email to info@thepageperspective.com. You can join the people with $30 million net worth and support my work by becoming a channel member and clicking the join button below for as little as $1.99 a month, or by going to patreon.com/idoubtitpodcast. Follow me on social media at Brittany Page. As always, thank you so much for being here. Take care, and I will see you next time.